Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to our weekly broadcast. Thursday, 10 a.m. again. For me, it definitely feels like lunchtime today because I left the house at 4 a.m. Got a flight at 6 from Belfast to London, on into London from Stansted, and at an office here in Stratford for 9 a.m. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of the day, but I feel as if I've done half a day already. But good morning, John. How are you?
Well, it's interesting. You did half a day and none of it was productive. It's all commuting.
Oh, shit in there.
It's all commuting.
So someone's rolled out of bed on the wrong side of the bed this morning, have they?
Just think, in the days of COVID, you would have put in a half day's work by now without any of that commuting.
Yeah, no, true. And a massive welcome to Natasha and Rochelle. Ladies, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
And just
fantastic.
for the viewers, can Natasha put up your hand?
That's me.
And then Rochelle. There you go. So everybody, you'll have to take notes. There'll be a quiz later. Which one is which?
One's which.
Exactly right. So let's get straight in to where we are. So for the purpose of anyone who's just joined us for the first time for our weekly broadcast, this is a weekly, around about 30 minutes that John and I do just as a brief market update, what's happening in the world of property crowdfunding. And then we tend to have on a special guest that will provide some value and education around the world of property and property investment. My name is David Johnson. I'm the CEO of Leo Crowdfunding. We're an equity property crowdfunding platform. And I'll let my co-host introduce himself.
John Corey, Property Fortress, long-term property investor, US, UK, Hawaii to Bradford. Also an active passive investor in crowdfunding deals. I like the equity. I don't like investing in the debt. And I'm here to help everybody else understand what's possible and they can make their own decisions. But yeah, I do find this deals come to you on crowdfunding that you get to just look everything over without having to chase it around.
Fantastic. So before we get into our special guests, there's a few good updates for the regulars on our platform. And yeah, the listeners to our weekly broadcast, some of them are property developers who have raised us on our platform. We've got lots of investors who've invested into deals. And then there's an audience of people who just love the education side, that we're updating people what's happening in the market and deep diving into different things that are relevant. So yeah, very delighted to announce that the Church Road Bristol project that we launched live noon last week, so literally last broadcast we launched it live. It actually reached its minimum 100,000 target in 20 minutes and reached its maximum 200,000 target in 24 hours. So Ed Morgan and West Country Partnerships are delighted that the raise went so well, and this was on the back of a planning uplift raise that he had done. So I think John, a lot of the investors who received their 50% ROI on their planning investment we're quite happy to back Ed again on the development phase.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an investor in this project and was in the other one, but I have no idea as an investor how many of those people crossed over to this project. Just for folks that are investors, you will get a list of all the investors in a project when you invest, but it happens after the shareholder agreement signed. So at this stage, it was more, I just looked at the opportunity. I've met Ed before. I know the team a bit. I've invested in some of their other projects. So it just seemed to make sense to move a little bit of cash from the other one into this one. So.
Yeah, and you mentioned the shareholder agreement there. So it is actually with our FCA principle currently being approved to go out in draft form to the investors. So that should be more than likely today or else tomorrow. And those that have invested will have a chance to look at that, make sure you're happy with it before the final shareholder agreement gets sent out and you have a chance to accept it. So another successful raise in the platform.
It's an opportunity for everybody to study a shareholder agreement, a little light reading before bedtime, but the shareholder agreement is your contract. Everything else is just fluff. This is your actual binding contract when it comes to a raise. So anybody that's looking to invest, I do encourage you to read the document.
Yeah, absolutely. The Becontree Avenue, Dagenham Tranche 2 is still open, actually closes on Friday. So it is actually up to 167,400 now. So there's only less than 1,300, or sorry, 38,000 left on the raise. So the maximum raise is 180, and they've raised 167,400 from 27 investors. This is an income generating opportunity. Premises built, tenanted, rented, and it's a rental share. So you can go to our YouTube channel and you can actually listen to a project webinar that was done by AJ and his team. A very good in-depth look at the project. So if this is something that interests you, then jump on and have a look at that. And then today at 12 o'clock, it's been a busy November for us. This will be the third project we've launched in November. So Stafford Gardens in Surrey goes live for investment today at 12 noon. Again, if you go to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Leo Crowdfunding, you will be able to see a project webinar that we did on Tuesday night. It was a really good one. Loads of questions from the investors and very informative. So if this is something that interests you, it's a planning uplift gain. Is high risk. It's very much on the high risk scale of property investment, but he's offering a 50% ROI. And what I'm going to try and do very briefly, if this works, is just show a very quick clip. And let's see if this works or not. John's going to be sitting with bated breath to see if my IT skills are up to scratch today or not.
Well, I'm glad that nothing proprietary was shared on the screen a minute ago. So.
Is your music playing? No?
Not that I can hear.
Okay, hang on. I know what I did wrong there. 1 second.
This is where we start dancing.
Music now. Okay, we'll go back to the slides. That was just a quick look of the CAD imagery of the project. So it's 4 townhouses and 42 apartments from memory.
For anybody listening, definitely study the offer document, which is at the site, the Leo site. Look at the forum, see any questions and answers. If you have any questions after reading the document, post them in the forum. Everybody gets to see the questions so they can see the response. You know, this is definitely an opportunity to understand how you would raise money if you had a planning opportunity. It's an opportunity to see what other investors care about. So there's a lot of ways you can learn by just participating, even if you don't invest. And if you do invest, then you have an opportunity to read the shareholder agreement when that comes out. And then you actually get to make your final decision when it comes to approving the shareholder agreement. So good educational process.
Yep, no, thanks, John, for highlighting that. When you go to the thumbnail on the homepage and click on that, on the left-hand side of the screen is what you'll see. So there's overview, financials, team, and then there's the forum that John mentioned. I know Mark's been very active on that, answering questions. So, and then on the right-hand side is a picture of the equity offer document that you're able to download once you're registered on the platform. So we definitely encourage people to go to that. That's your main document to have a look at the information to see if it's for you or not. So it's a projected 50% ROI, estimated 9 months. He's put together a very strong team. Minimum investment is actually £100. So that allows people who do want to have an educational experience, you know, invest £100 if you so wish, and you then have a back seat view of this project from start to finish. So there's a lot of benefit in that. So it goes live today at noon. So if this is one that you want to be involved in, then you can jump on at 12 noon and make your pledge. So absolutely delighted. Rochelle and Natasha, we've been bouncing back and forward on LinkedIn, I think particularly with Rochelle, probably for many months now. exchanging ideas and just different thoughts, what's happening in the market. It was like, okay, now's the time to get Natasha and Rochelle on and have a good chat about things. So listen, first of all, you want to introduce yourselves, your background, and explain who you are.
Yeah, so hello, I'm Natasha and this is Rochelle. We are actually sisters and business partners. So we founded Next RouteFinance around, I think it was 10 years ago or so now. And over the years, we've just become more and more niche. So we just work with property developers now. Sort of over the years of building that, we've substantially sort of grown our network and our connections in the finance world. So we know a lot of people and businesses that do other things, but because of our background, so mine's actually architecture. I was trained to be an architect for a while, and Rochelle's an accountancy. Property development finance was just sort of a natural fit for us. And we've always wanted to work together. We used to sort of sit there and think, okay, how can we merge architecture and accountancy? And nothing really worked for a while. I mean, obviously I did it sort of years ago now, but when I was training, I did notice that sort of within becoming an architect, there wasn't a huge amount of scope, or there wasn't a huge amount of talk on the funding side, which I thought was strange, because I was like, no funding, no project. So then that combined with your background in sort of the intricate detail on the numbers, it just was a natural fit for us. And yeah, we gravitated towards that and learned a lot more about it and become really involved. So that was our main thing.
I think you summarised that well. What she said.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any comments on your sort of background, Natasha, or sorry, Rochelle, on your side, or?
Yeah, well, I suppose the key thing really is, because our skill sets are quite different, we're actually it's combining the two, isn't it, really? Yeah. So looking at other brokers and other avenues on the market, it was almost going niche now and just doing development finance. With Natasha's architectural background, conversations that we have with developers are almost opened up, aren't they? Because obviously the funding side is one element, but it's not, numbers tell a story. So what is the story? What are you looking to achieve? So naturally, kind of it fits quite well. And developments, as you know, are more complex than, say, your buy-to-lets or your bridging loans, because they are just generally almost like a straight line term loan in effect, whereas developments, you've got your stage payments, you've got your cash flows, just your tranche payments, is a bit more complex. So yeah, we love it. So
we do. I think it's kind of that. I feel really fortunate in the sense that has given me a good kind of foundation, because I guess the dialogue between, obviously numbers is our main thing and that's our main focus, but the dialogue we can have with developers in terms of seeing the overall appraisal, seeing the scheme. Like, I love the whole package, right? Like, I love the numbers, but I love seeing the whole package and getting really stuck into what materials are you using, or like what's your choice of like construction, and really digging deeper. So it is good for us, because the clients that we do have, we built a really strong relationship, so because of knowledge and back and forth and just conversations that we have. So
yeah, I think because we see ourselves almost as the intermediary, so we have developers and then the lending side, we're able to have both hats at the same time. So where you've got developers will take their point of view, why have you done the GDV of that, we'll go through that scenario and all the figures on the appraisal, but at the same time we're obviously mindful of the other side of the spectrum, which is people with the money, whether that's private individuals or the banks, etc. For us, it's almost like we have to paint the picture for both parties, so they both have an understanding. It's not just, I know our clients are the developers, but we want them to be funded, and we want them to have the longevity with the funding. We can explain that. So yeah, it's just every case is so different as well. Even though you think we're very niche, every developer's different, their backgrounds are different, their projects are different. So it's always every day's different.
No, okay. Well, listen, just on that then, because when I looked at you a few months ago, Rochelle, I was quite intrigued by the way you've presented yourself. So you mentioned there about the intermediary, and then I think, Natasha, you mentioned niche. So just maybe define that, because most people are familiar, okay, senior debt brokers or bridging brokers, there's loads of them out there. So what makes you different, and how do you frame that when you're speaking to, as you say, both sides of your marketplace?
Yeah, well, we almost see there's kind of two types of developers in our eyes. So it's dependent on their primary goals. So you've almost got the property portfolio types that are trying to grow that, and then you've also almost got like the traditional type developers that are build and sell, and that's the typical ones that we work with. So that's kind of the main difference between the two. I mean, in terms of like a comparison, we noticed that there was quite a lot of developers that came to us that wanted just a straightforward loan, almost like they got their equity and they want the senior debt. So that's quite a competitive piece of the market, and a lot of people do a lot of rate chasing, and we provide that service just to give a bit of value and a bit of comfort in the fact that they are getting the best terms, or for them. But
I think sometimes by looking at the market, you've almost got, even for our transition as well, understanding the market as a broker, or you almost got two sides. You've got your brokers, which are your senior debt, competitive piece of the market. They're almost finding competitive terms, and then you've got kind of another set of brokers which are more real estate debt advisory. So they will look at the full capital stack and they'll go, okay, well, I can see you're doing this, and how about we structure it here? So that's almost why we've almost got two parts to our service. We've got the loan side, the traditional, what you mentioned, the comparison site feel to it. We've also got the debt advisory, looking at actually how can we get you to your 90% loan to cost or 100%, which is, again, those type of developers are experienced. They are, you're building a pipeline that every couple of months are saying, I found another bit of land. So it's just, they're constantly looking at where's the next piece of the money coming from, and how out. So it's quite that's why I say we're different to a certain degree, because brokers, as in the market, you'll have different range of brokers. You have from your residential mortgage brokers that might do your home mortgage, and they'll use a software and it's very much product based. And then we're on the flip side of that, as in very much bespoke. There's no kind of products. We'll negotiate, we'll work out the capital stack. So we're kind of on that spectrum opposed to like the traditional broker.
Okay, no, that's really useful. I think you've explained that very well. It's a big market. There's lots of players, but you're very clear on your kind of niche USP. So I think you've already explained number one. So you've already sort of explained that one was an accountant, one was an architect, and you've wanted to get in business together as sisters and friends, I guess, as well as business partners. So just going on to number two on the screen there. So how do you find working as business partners? So not only are you sort of business partners, which sometimes can be challenging, but sisters and business partners. That I'm curious to hear.
I'll let you go on the
well, I think it's quite harsh, but I think the whole sort of siblings in business can almost make or break you, so to speak. But I feel like fortunately for us, it has made us stronger. And the main difference, I think fortunately our main difference is in our skill sets, but as people, we're very similar. So we have the same morals, the same values, the same dreams. And I think the key thing actually is we have the same level of communication. So, the same dialogue, the same expectations, or, we'll talk about certain things. So that's I think that's kind of been the key, the core, the glue part. Exactly the same things really. I think that the communication part is key. I think there's so many people looking at the business partners that it's almost they've had a breakdown of communication and the culture change in their business. We're actually, I suppose, I'm not sure it's good or bad, but we are quite, honest and open. We'll just say it how it is, quite straight talking individuals. So we like that in a way, so we know where we stand, where some people might then, if they've got a problem, might hide it and might, so we don't just. Yeah, they always say something. Well, I do always hear people say, you should go into business with someone that's like the opposite to you. And I think that's fine in terms of skill sets. I guess that could work. But as people, I think if you're two different people, you must butt heads quite a lot. And also, like you said, for us as sisters and as friends, the journey, and we're quite grateful for every day. So we get to do things together, not as much as we would like to nowadays because of time or lack of it, but we do enjoy the journey together. It makes it more enjoyable.
It feels really appropriate like this being
Thanksgiving.
No, it's
just
good.
Pick up on that. So when you say you're working less together because of time these days, what does that mean?
In terms of sort of meetings and even things like this, if we get the opportunity to do talks or different events, we like to do as much as we can together because we are kind of the brand together. But time is the variable that none of us can weirdly control. So
you're another way to hear that is you're busy.
And that. thankfully.
It's interesting. I've always fascinated by elite sport and elite, business people. I mean, they're very similar, whether you're a elite politician, sports person, business person. The characteristics are very often the same. And I know John and I would discuss this, John, the difference between task cohesion and team cohesion. If you can get task cohesion and team cohesion, then obviously that's almost like, business heaven in that sense, because you've got, a nice harmony with everybody. But there's a lot of football teams where players won't even speak to each other off the pitch, but their team cohesion, in fact, their task cohesion is absolutely aligned. So they come together with their skills, they buy into the vision, and they deliver the performances. But they're not necessarily friendly or get on well. But you seem to have both.
Yeah,
yeah,
we're quite lucky. We do
feel
have,
fortunate.
yeah.
It sounds cliche, but it is about the journeys, and like, we have big goals and big dreams, but if we're not enjoying the day to day and enjoying the process of it all, it's almost pointless to a certain degree. So it's just reiterating and re-looking at systems and how we're working together, and it's just, you have to be quite mindful of it to progress, I guess, don't you?
So when you have a problem and you disagree on something, what is there a mechanism in place? Do you call it like a timeout scenario, or what's the mechanism to solve a disagreement?
I think that we are quite, both of us are quite level-headed. So I think we actually see it as a good, in a weird way, we do see it as a good thing, because generally if there's a disagreement or there's something, it's actually not generally a disagreement, it's more of a different perspective. There'll be certain things that I see differently that you do, and we just have a conversation about it and actually just come to some sort of conclusion. So we don't really argue.
I think sometimes it depends on the person's level of empathy, I guess. If you can, some people are very close and they won't, someone might give their own opinion, and the other person will, be so stubborn in their own understanding of that topic. We're actually, for us, we will still be mindful of the fact that actually, okay, I understand that, but why are you saying that then? Okay, I understand that. So it's just again, I guess it comes down to what we do as a job as well. So we question everything in a good way, like, why are you doing that? Like, where's the figure stacked up to? So I think it's just we keep that process going, even down to normal things like shopping. What do you want to?
I think David, you probably sat there thinking you're wanting us to say, actually, we're really friendly on screen, but behind the scenes, we're not. We're not like that at all. No, not like that.
So,
reality. Well, that kind
from
of
outside, why should a client pick you as the team? Why should they pick your company? What is it other than, okay, two sisters that get along? Why would I want to go with you?
Yeah, you go first.
Well, I think because of a couple of things, because of the niche elements of what we do. So when you compare again the other competitors on the market, not everyone is so specific as us, but also as, I guess, individuals, because of our backgrounds and because of our level of due diligence behind. I'm not saying other people don't care, but because we are just focused on one thing, we will almost go through the process with them in a more detail, but also the fact that we aren't really looking for transactional type clients anyway. Our clients, fortunately today, touch wood, they've all been existing customers. They come back, they see us as part of their wider team. So where they've got all the hats as a developer does, and they're planning, and then they'll have the finance part, that we almost take that finance hat and we become, they're kind of their go-to. So
I think we always have sort of the kind of toss up between the term broker as well, because I think that we are obviously a broker by default in terms of how we sit in the market. There's one side, people need the money, and the other side, people have the money. But I think for us, we're always trying to think outside the box. It's never a computer says no kind of processy. It's okay, oh, you have this problem, or this is your scheme, okay, we'll find the solution. There's always a solution somewhere.
Yeah, okay. So education, I know that's something that you're passionate about, as is John. So if you want to just comment on why you think education is important, and I'll let John come in after you, just in terms of where he sees the education market with property, for companies like yours.
Okay, it's something that we do sort of push quite a lot, because I think it's the classic saying of you don't know what you don't know, and I think in property development it's so complex that even for people just starting out to those that are massively scaling up or been in the business for years, it is always changing. So that's a huge part, I think, education. And I think in terms of Was there a point you want to say on that?
I was just saying about the equity part. So the route one, how we've educated people on that basis.
Oh yeah, you go.
Okay, so we've in terms of the branding, we have actually tried to find, again, this is more Natasha than me, visual concepts around it, because again, numbers, there's no kind of visualness to it, but it's almost with regards to our branding and the routes element, being different options. If you take, say, route one, as looking at your capital stack, route one would be all cash, all developer equity. Route two would be your next traditional one, which would be your senior debt, and then your equity on top. That's your route two. And then we've I think we've got about 27 different routes, the way you can structure the capital stack. And I think we've got 3 to 7 is in relation to where a developer can possibly double their return on equity. So for an example, say, I can't remember what they are, but route 3 could be Leo, an equity crowd platform. So you'll have your senior debt, you'll have the 10%, which is what you definitely need for the developer's equity. And then the gap in between could be Leo. It could be, okay, well, there's your equity piece, the hybrid, obviously it's unsecured in this instance, but that would, for the developer's perspective, they've almost half their equity and they're able to use the crowd. So the return on the equity is in effect doubled. So it's just, I think people don't know what, like, they don't know. So some people are so used to using two that they kind of go, oh, I didn't realize that, or okay, how else can we plug that gap? So we're always challenging the situation and trying to find new ways. So it's just important because
that's a good sort of specific education point. John, any observations?
No, but I think it's interesting that 27 different routes. So maybe if we had more time, we could go through them, because it sounds like you also ban them, that there's 1 and 2, there's 3 to 7, then there's the rest of them. So maybe a topic for a longer conversation is how the routes evolved, how they've clustered, when different clients should be looking at certain routes, or routes, as I might say.
It's a topic more for a podcast, John. That's the word you're looking for, I think, perhaps, is it?
It could be, yeah.
Okay, so moving towards the close then, one of the reasons I like having people like yourselves on, Natasha and Rochelle, is that there's one thing that theory, people have got a lot of knowledge and they read a newspaper and they listen to the news or whatever, but when people are actually running businesses and it affects their income, their livelihoods and their dreams and their family's future, whenever we have events like we've had, in the last number of months, in particular last number of weeks, in terms of the business environment around property, it can have a big impact on people's lives, particularly their thoughts for the future. So what do you see as your biggest challenges, say, in the next 6 to 12 months, and what are you doing to address that?
Well, one of the things that we're noticing and we're hearing about, especially in the senior debt market, is there has been possibly reductions in the leverage. So naturally, equity is always going to be a problem, whether it's now or 12 months or 12 months ago. It's always going to be kind of the key point. So in light of that, if you've got the developers then that are getting less leverage from their senior debt position, they're having to find more equity on that scenario. And also the fact that we've noticed a few recent cases that we've had where a client may have got, I'm trying to think of one last week, like a conversion. We had one last week. It was over $1 million loan, and they were looking at the build period was 9 months, and traditionally, say 12 months ago, we would say, okay, 12-month term is fine. But actually, having looked at the market and listening to what people are saying and knowing on the exit market as well, we were saying, actually, what happens if you go over by a month on your build now? And what happens now, we're finding that whether you exit it as a sale or you exit as a term loan, that's taking much more now. So, if you are still wanting 12 months, should we actually do 15? Just be more prudent with the scheme. But the caveat to that is then your day one, so the day that you complete on the loan, is lower, because they're having to take out the interest on that first purchase part out to account for the 15 months. So again, the equity problem comes back into play because it's still leaving them short on day one. So equity is always going to be the biggest challenge, and it's just, and then it's combining that with the senior market so that it all ties in really. So
yeah, I think like you said, so our conversations between all of us, I think equity is the key thing we found, and even in relation to some of the FCA rules around that, as John very well knows, the principle of people raising that private finance, there's rules in place and there's more like coming about. So that's something we're also trying to push and help people get a bit more educated around that. So
yeah.
Okay, so give me one word each as to your if like your mindset for the next 6 months, just in terms of fearful, anxiety, unsure, through to opportunity, excited. Where's your business mind at in terms of the current climate?
I'm going to go for opportunity. I think there's obviously going to be negatives in there, but I think there's always also opportunity. So I take that one.
Well, mine's similar. I was going to say positive, because I think that it depends on how you perceive the market and your own situation naturally. And again, I always say we're yay sisters, so you're going to be positive. That's just how we are.
Yeah.
But it depends on how you look at it and who you have on the teams and opportunities you get. So I think positivity needs to be spread more, and I think that it depends on saying no as well. Is a good thing for developers. It's actually good to say no on schemes, just because it might look something that you want to do. Actually, the positive is actually the no.
Yeah.
So that's my answer as well.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And on the screen there is some of the blogs that you've done. So if anyone wants to have a look at you, go to Next Route Finance. I know you've got a website platform, you're on LinkedIn, so you can see some educational material that Natasha and Rochelle have put out. And John, do you want to just wrap up this session? We have two more slides before we finish off in terms of the overall broadcast. But I know you've dealt with Natasha and Rochelle. You've been speaking to them as well over time. So, any observations on the thoughts today?
Well, something that just popped in my mind. It's almost like the team is a virtual project CFO. So not a company CFO for a developer, but a CFO for the project, where looking at the various alternative ways to raise capital, how that's going to play out over time, looking at the exit strategies. And it's very much leaving the developer to get on with the rest of the business. Now, I know as a broker, you're more front end, but in a sense, your advice, your perspective is more holistic, and you have that perspective of, are we going to do a term product at the end of the development phase? So you have to take a wider view.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good summary.
Yeah, excellent. I was just thinking of a word I could think of to describe today, and it has to be enthusiastic. I think both of you bring an enthusiasm to your work. And certainly from a client point of view, I'm sure people enjoy your input, because you do bring that just simple enthusiasm to what you do, and that's obviously very important in life. And when you can do it with a smile, then business is definitely easier. So thank you very much indeed. Brilliant. And this recording will be on the broadcast or on the YouTube channel in about an hour or so. So I'll send a link over to you. So next week we're doing a real lives look. So not so much about the business, but more about the journey of Sam Loney in property. He's got a great background in property in different aspects. He now happens to run a property finance brokerage, but a really, really interesting journey. And I've known Sam for a number of years now, entertained him in Northern Ireland when he was over doing some property business at one point. It's going to be a very, very interesting sort of real life story next week. And you're there. And again, I mentioned last week, we are moving to more podcast based rather than our weekly broadcasts. So it does allow, John, as you said earlier, the like of Natasha and Rochelle, I mean, having 45 minutes to an hour to start to deep dive into some of the things that were discussed earlier would be very beneficial and would definitely provide huge educational value.
And just so people know, by podcast, you don't mean audio only.
Yes, it'll be audio and visual. Obviously, if they want to do the audio only, they can. But yeah, it'll be the recording, video recording as well.
Because I can imagine some topics we're going to have relatively detailed slides that people need to see, and then other topics you could listen to in the car.
And if you take today's guests, I think audio, you definitely get a bit of enthusiasm, but obviously when you see Natasha and Rochelle on screen, there's an extra engagement, because then the day communication is body language, etc. So I think there's benefit in having that option for those that want the video side. but of course then the audio for that. So yeah, so that's I've actually a date in the diary for, it's actually the 8th of December. I'm actually back in London doing some recording of sessions, and we aim to start putting these out in January. So you can stay tuned for that. And that is us for today. So massive thank you to Natasha and Rochelle. Appreciate the time you've given us. And that's going to make for an excellent recording. For those that are interested in the Stafford Gardens project, it goes live at 12 o'clock. Make sure you tune in there. So any last goodbyes from Natasha and Rochelle?
Yeah, thank you very much for having us. It's our pleasure to be here and be able to talk about the topic.
Yeah, just thank you as well. As it was always, like I said, we could be here for an hour, definitely.
Yeah,
talking about things.
Yeah, you do come on, you think, oh, okay, 20 minutes, but it flies by, doesn't it?
Yeah, so, but thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you volunteering to come to see me face to face then in January, February for a full podcast?
Yeah, we haven't been to Ireland before, and we would love to go. So
we move to London now, right? You?
Well, you can do. Well, if you want to come over to Northern Ireland, even better. We can do it there.
Yeah, we'll come to Ireland definitely.
Yeah. Well, let's make that happen. There you are. So, John, we've committed to coming over to the centre of the universe in January, February.
I think there's every reason to believe that you could run a business from Belfast, and I've been a proponent of that. I don't think there's a need for London.
Yeah. That's a topic for another day. That's not. Everyone just moved to Belfast. Listen, thanks everyone. Have a great Thursday, and we'll see you all again next week. All the best, mate. Bye bye.